Hello Internet, I'm the Artist 1888, I mean 1999, coming back at you in another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Barbarian class. I feel like out of all the classes, this one gets the most typecast. We tend to just think of them as the mindless hack and slashers, but there's so much more here. Mechanically speaking, raging just means that you become physically stronger and are unable to cast or concentrate on spells. That's it. I mean, after all, what's a barbarian?
What's a barbarian? Non-Romans, said the Romans, being invaded by non-Romans.
It can be a lot of things. Nowhere does it say that you have to play it a certain way. So today we're going to be running down 10 ideas for ways to flavor your barbecuing in. I mean barbarian. Some of these will be ways to think about the rages themselves, while others will be themes for the overall build. Number 10 is the Classic Berserker. If this is really what you want to play, then go for it. Just don't think that it diminishes your ability to roleplay any. Your character probably has some reason to go berserk. Did he lose everything dear to him and wants vengeance on the world? Did he become so fed up with some tyrant that he took upon the rages as a way to rebel and give him strength? Does your character feel any remorse for what he does while raging? There's a ton to think about here. Number 9 is the mad scientist. So she would have experimented on herself, and in her case the rages would be using some artificial means to give herself maybe like a flood of adrenaline. Perhaps her amygdala goes into overdrive to fuel her bloodlust. Perhaps it's an Incredible Hulk type story where she's mild-mannered and highly intelligent most of the time, but turns into a fearsome brute in battle. This could work well with an artificer multiclass, especially the alchemist specialist and the simic scientist background. Number 8 is the Zen Warrior. We're going to be doing something completely opposite here in terms of theming. Instead of entering into a primal fury, this guy would be focusing their whole mind and body on their opponent. They zone out of distractions and zone in on their foes. In response, redirecting all excess power into their attacks, leaving none for spellcasting. Now, this is an idea I originally heard from an r/RPG horror story where the DM overrode this cool concept and instead the player had to rage the old-fashioned way, which I just think is a shame. I couldn't track it down to the source, but if you know it, go ahead and put it in the comments and I'll put it in the description. Now, this theme could fit well with some perhaps monk multiclass and the sage background. Number 7 is the possessed. Ooh. With this, his rages would be the result of a dark entity lingering within him. By giving into this force, he gains power but loses control of himself. This could provide some great roleplay opportunities where he has to work with his demon to get help from other fiends, and perhaps he even makes a pact with it for a warlock multiclass. And it could also come with a haunted one background. Number 6, the arcane. Now for this I just don't mean the path of wild magic, but that certainly fits here. What I'm saying is that in character, you are a magic user who uses their abilities to augment their body. This could be a good way to play as a barbarian who doesn't have high physical stats, but solid mental stats. You know, on second thought, using Cosmo for high mental stats probably wasn't a good example, but I digress. Maybe they are only magically muscular when they are magically raging like this. And you could use this to multiclass into pretty much any caster class if you want to. Number 5 is the Florida Man. Now, before anyone complains, I am a Floridian, so I'm allowed to make these jokes. The Floridian man, well, he's fueled by a combination of two things: cheap beer and a disregard for consequences. He's gonna wrestle some gators. He's gonna shoot at a hurricane. He's gonna try to rob a store wearing a transparent bag as his disguise. Yes, those are all based on true stories. Now, I do want to provide the caveat that this should not be used in most games, especially not long-term or serious adventures, but rather for, those joke one-shots where you're just coming together for a night of fun. Now, number 4, let's get back on track. The Fallen Celestial. For this one, an angel, or maybe even a god, was cast down to live among mortals, a la Trials of Apollo. She still has some of her powers, and for her, leveling up is just reobtaining abilities that she once had. She would become stronger and more resistant to mortal weaponry. Perhaps her character arc is coming to terms with her wickedness and learning to become more righteous. The type of divine being she once was would determine her subclass. For example, a Tempest goddess could be a Storm Herald. Asimir would make for a good race for this one. Perhaps she could multiclass into Cleric or Paladin. This concept pretty much fits any class, by the way, so go ahead and get creative with it. Like perhaps you're a wizard with divine powers, etc. Ask yourself how your character would react to being forced to live among regular people. Does she consider herself innately better than them? How does she know dying could affect her? And how does she interact with the people that used to worship her and provide sacrifices? Number 3, the demigod. This one is similar to the fallen celestial, but with some differences. For one thing, they aren't trying to reobtain anything, but rather find their own divine destiny. That would also mean that they interact with mortals differently, and there wouldn't be the culture shock of being forced to live among them. Perhaps they would also consider themselves better than other people and will rage against those who disrespect them, but perhaps instead they see themselves as the divinely appointed protector of the common folk. Number 2, the naturalist. For a naturalist, he sees his rage as a force of nature, like a typhoon or a stampeding herd. He channels those forces into himself to destroy his foes.
Witness my new special move, Lion Wildwind Fang Dance! Whoa! Pegasus, watch out!
It's only natural that one thing be brought down so another can rise up. That is the whole principle of the food chain. I would highly encourage you to decide which elemental force he embodies and use that for the subclass. For example, a totem warrior would draw on the animals, whereas someone with the might of the oceans would be Path of the Depths. By the way, did you know about Path of the Depths? I just learned about it while writing this episode. It's from Legends of Runeterra, Dark Tides of Bilgewater, and as you can imagine, they get some pretty cool water abilities. Number 1 is the android. This one is a robotic barbarian, likely using the Warforged race. Perhaps it has proper sentience and chose to give into rage, and perhaps instead it enters rage mode against its designer's wishes due to some sort of glitch. Ask yourself how it was made and how self-aware it is. Was it released into the wild on purpose, or did it escape from its makers? You know, an artificial being that's capable of actual emotion is a terrifying concept and is a subject of a lot of sci-fi, so there's a ton to work here with. This could work well with the techno-magic worlds of Ravnica or Eberron, or perhaps a high sci-fi space adventure. There's also a lot here in the way of self-discovery, and perhaps its rage is just it not even understanding what it is, so it gets angry. Maybe instead, though, its rage is just redirecting power to its vital functions during battle, kind of like what we saw with the Zen Barbarian. As a machine, it would have a lot more control over this than an organic creature would. Well, there you go. 10 ways to theme your barbarian. Do you think you might use some of these, or do you have another one in mind? Go ahead and put that down below. By the way, if you're the type of DM who only allows for the stereotypical barbarians, just stop it. You don't have to accept every character idea a player has, but keep an open mind. The beauty of TTRPGs is that it can be different. It doesn't have to be exactly the way you expect or the way a different group does it. It's your game, and you and your players can figure it out together. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will try to be back soon with another one. Until then, I'm the Aries9099. Have a great day, and God bless.